back here with another reaction. This one, Hoop Intellect, talking about the 2024 NBA Draft Big Board. Now, one thing I'm not very knowledgeable about, and I'll be the first one to tell you, is the NBA Draft and its prospects this year. Obviously, big portion of that is the draft is not good. But shout out to my guy Hoop Intellect for helping me out with this. He's a Royals fan. That's what I'm talking about. So we're going to be looking at this, giving me some good knowledge on ball and the NBA draft. Tyler Kolek, the one guy I do know. Hopefully the Timberwolves do draft him.
What's good, everybody? I'm Keandre. This is Hoop Intellect, and welcome back to the channel. Now, the draft is right around the corner, and with the college return deadline now behind us, we've got a good look at who will actually be available on draft night. Now, there have been some big changes in this board, and the tiers are back, so hopefully it's a good overall look at my assessment of this class as a whole and these guys individually. I will probably do one more of these before the draft, but it shouldn't change too drastically at this point of the year. With guys like Hunter Salas, Jameer Watkins, Alex Carabin, and others all deciding to return to school, we do have a bit lighter pool than before, but there is still a decent amount of talent.
Dude, look at how many guys there are here, man. The one thing I see is Terrence Shannon Jr., man. That whole situation with him was sad. I'm not gonna lie. If a girl accuses a man of rape falsely, it should be a severe consequence. That's all I'm going to say or speak on it. But it is ridiculous seeing those text messages talking about you got him with money signs. Ridiculous. That's all I'm
here. I say the bulk are worth more Exhibit 10 and Summer League opportunities, but there's some potential two-way guys.
Let's see if there's anybody here that I really am a big fan of. I mean, I like Watson from Gonzaga, at least from the short time I've watched him. I like him. As far as everybody else here, again, Cam Spencer is an absolute hooper. Where does he find in the NBA? I don't know. But I do think he could be a bench piece right away because he is a good defender as well. But Terrence Shannon Jr. is going to be a stud, an absolute stud.
I really like Riley Minix out of Morehead State. He's got a crazy path going from NAIA to the OVC Player of the Year, but he's a big wing / forward shooter who does a good amount well, and I think is worth a shot. Cam Spencer is older and a smaller off guard, but he's an obvious winner, big time shooter who can make a play, and
I feel like he could impact winning right now.
Trenton Flowers did enough of the combine to me to at least be in the mix more. If he leans more into an off-ball role and defense with his athleticism, he should have a chance. And then you've got plenty of others here, from Judah Mintz to Reese Beekman, Antonio Reeves. I really like the bigs left in Quentin Post and Foley Dante, Ariel Hukporty, and Jesse Edwards. And then you've got others like Naquan Tomlin, David Jones, Jalen Williams, and others, all worth an opportunity. I'm
excited to see the top 60 though.
Akron's Enrique Freeman has one of the most fun stories of any prospect in this class, and really of the last.
I watched him a little in the tourney. He was really good.
Years. Going from a regular student walk-on to an elite producer and conference player of the year, and then recently playing extremely well in all three of Portsmouth, the elite camp, and into the NBA draft combine. He's got impressive interior touch and scoring. He can shoot it, and I just think he can play, and he's draftable to me.
And to be honest, in the tournament, he was hooping too.
Bronny James is already the most polarizing likely second-round pick that will ever exist.
I mean, I like him. Just if you could get Bron, I would not want him as a prospect.
Now, he never got to fully show what he was capable of before entering this process, primarily because of his health situation, and that has come with an unreasonable amount of scrutiny from all directions. But for me, he still remains a draftable prospect. He's a great athlete, he defends, he's unselfish. I buy the jumper and think he'll have a shot at carving out a role as a defensive combo guard. Now, there's room for criticism in his playmaking, assertiveness, and just lack of production entering the draft.
I mean, he is so athletic, though. That is one thing that you cannot. You can't fault.
And I do have some worries about him getting lost in the shuffle if he can't establish himself in those first 2 years, but he's got a chance to put it together, likely on the Lakers, and prove himself worthy of just belonging. Juan Nunez brings a nice game as a guard with some special abilities to pass the ball and operate in the pick and roll. I'm still a little bit more skeptical in him as a shooter, but he's made improvements, and the fact that he measured in at 6'4" without shoes is kind of significant.
Whoa, we went tween.
He also signed with Barcelona, so if he does stay in the draft, he'll be a nice stash candidate for teams.
I mean, I guess.
Washington State's Isaac Jones really impressed me from Portsmouth to the NBA Combine, and his size and versatility always stands out as a big forward. He's a good athlete. He can defend multiple positions. He's got some interior skill as a scorer, and I think if we saw a team take him even higher than this range, I honestly wouldn't be surprised.
Hey, I mean, his player build's definitely there, man. No doubt.
Trey Alexander didn't have a very good showing at the combine.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not very high on Trey Alexander. I'm not. I wasn't in college. I'm not right now.
But a well-rounded combo guard with a plus wingspan.
He can score, but
I do worry he's a bit more of an undersized off guard.
He is just undersized.
Lives in the mid-range a little more than teams are gonna want, but I think he's a fine second-round pick that will likely be on the fringes of a guaranteed deal. Ethan Almanza is still a young prospect worth taking a flyer on. I've said this a few times before. He didn't really stand out in a real way this year. He produced well enough, but he's a little undersized at the 5. He doesn't really protect the rim. Not a great athlete.
I do not know this guy.
Like his feel, his upside as a scorer on the interior, his versatility as a mover, and he'll likely have a couple years in the G League to figure it out. And if a team is willing to give him that opportunity, he could exceed expectations.
Even just looking at his movement, I'm not a fan.
Now, all these tiers are still somewhat flexible. I spent a good amount of time this year trying to figure out how I wanted to do it, but this is a solid look, and hopefully I'll be able to work it all out.
I like Isaac Jones and Enrique Freeman probably the most out of this tier 5, if I had to say.
Out for the final.
Do I know anything?
But for now,
really?
This is what it is, and here we've got more of the two-way looks with some of those outside of the top 60 also in this group. Baylor's Jalen Bridges is a solid 3-and-D bet as a 6'8 wing. He was quietly great for them this year and really turned it on as a scorer late. And though he's another guy who's older and doesn't necessarily have an elite skill, I like his game and think his skill set is tailor-made for being a role player.
I mean, he's 6'7".
Clemson's PJ Hall decided to stay in the draft, and he has an impressive skill set as an interior scorer, role partner.
PJ Hall was hooping in the tourney, man. Where does he fit in the NBA? I don't know, but he was hooping in the tourney.
Spacer, and he's going to have to work defensively to stick and probably shoot it at a level that he didn't this year, but at 6'8", 7'2" wingspan, with his type of production, he's still a solid prospect to me. Justin Edwards is likely locked in as an early to mid-second round upside swing on the wing. He showed more of the shot-making flashes at the end of the year and in the combine to go along with solid defense.
I don't know why, but lefties are always just so much more smooth.
But he still doesn't have an elite skill. I question what he does best in the league, but he is still fairly young and could pay dividends down the line as a former top 5.
It's crazy that these guys are born in 2004, 2003.
Jamal Shead is a pretty cut and dry evaluation. He's a tremendous point of attack defender who can make plays offensively and plays with a lot of fire.
He's just only 6 feet
gonna
tall,
have to shoot it to have a chance at all, but he's a proven winner, and I'd be surprised if he hasn't interviewed as well as anybody out there. Also, Iguodala has a good amount to like as a versatile defender, playmaker, and finisher.
I like him. He's so athletic.
Now, he's a bit undersized for a 5 at 6'9.5 with a 6'11 wingspan. He also doesn't shoot it yet and hasn't been a great rim protector, so he'll have his work cut out.
But he's so athletic,
for him for those reasons. But he's always impressed me as a good player who gets the job done and could pop in the right spot. AJ Johnson was one of the biggest winners of the draft combine to me, just showing the ability to hang with this
6'4"? He's 6'4", 167.
competition and make plays in the process.
Oh, he was born in December of 2004. I mean, that's really not that crazy, I guess, because it is. But he's, what, 19 years old?
I still think he's very raw. He's basically 165 pounds at 6'5", but he certainly convinced me he's a second-round pick and hit on some of the potential that he showed in high school.
Just young, man.
UConn's Tristan Newton is definitely draftable as a well-rounded guard with solid size who was the catalyst for the back-to-back champs. He's older and was never a great shooter or defender during his time, but I think he impacts the game in too many ways. He makes plays and
I think he's solid too.
Spots, and that makes him a good option in the mid to late second round. Arizona's Keyshawn Johnson is one of the most athletic players in the draft.
So athletic. He's old though.
Improved yet still shaky shooter. I think he's got a decent shot at finding a spot as an energy.
I'm not
forward,
a big fan on him just because he's
two-way.
old.
I wouldn't be surprised if he was able to turn it into a guaranteed deal if he can prove the shot real. As someone who, remember, made a limited impact in his first 4 years of school. Arizona's Pelle Larsson is another guy who has an intriguing all-around skill set and has impacted winning consistently to this point.
I just don't know about these guys from Arizona being the NBA players,
man. They need to get that three-point volume up and take advantage
I just don't
of
know.
Opportunities a little more than he has in the past, but he's someone I'm always pretty impressed by and I'm sure has a good number of fans and organizations. UNC's Harrison Ingram is a connective wing / forward who can do a little of everything. Now the biggest questions for him will just be proving that the shooting improvements were real.
He's going to be able to defend for sure.
Agile enough to hold up against NBA creators on the perimeter, but
I think he's going to be able to defend.
He's one of those guys that makes a clear and positive impact on the game and seems bought into helping a team win in whatever way he's needed. France and St. Quentin's Melvin Agenza has appeal as a 6'8 wing who can shoot the three, make shots on limited dribbles, and defends better than you'll see on the stat sheet.
Lefty.
He's someone that has a pretty clear role as a 3-and-D guy and transition scorer. And given his age, you could argue he should still be in the first round conversation with some,
he's young.
Some of the more heralded French wings. Jonathan Mogbo has seen his stock skyrocket over the last couple months, and
oh my
I'm glad
God,
to say he's been on the board for the better part of the year. He was impressive at the combine, showing off every element of his game, and even with him not fitting into a clear NBA role, his defensive versatility, athleticism, and playmaking are enough to bet on. And in the right spot,
he can handle
as high as a late first.
He can handle it too. I like it.
This is more second round guarantee candidates, and realistically, those with more middle to back end rotation upside. There's a couple of upside plays in there as well, and I still would consider many of them for teams in the late 30s, and it might still move around a bit before the next board. Warvz Chomshay maintains a lot of interest as an upside pick.
Bro, what? Okay, this dude was born December 30th of 2005. Do y'all realize how young that is? He was almost born in 2006.
He's a raw big who has the potential to stretch the floor, block shots, pass, and he's younger than plenty of 2025 prospects. I'd be surprised to see him play much in his first couple years, but there's interest in pre-drafting someone that would have possibly been a first-round pick next year had he chose a different route, and his flashes are definitely that of a high-impact player.
I like this guy's potential. He might never pan out, but he is so young.
Louisiana Tech's Isaiah Crawford has a great profile as a versatile wing defender that put up some absurd stocks numbers and can score it from a few places on the floor. Now, he played lower tier competition and tore his ACL twice in his college career, and that's going to weigh heavily for decision makers in a way that we're never going to have a first.
Tearing your ACL twice is so tough.
But I think he's someone that could end up a steal if things check out for him in a similar way to a guy like Vince Williams. Despite being a bit undersized, Adem makes up for it with his 7'4" wingspan and elite athletic abilities to protect the rim, finish plays, and cover ground on defense. He was in a pretty awful context this year with the type of responsibility that he had offensively, but in NBA spacing in a more compact role, if he can limit fouls and control the energy a bit, he'll have a
Bro, his player build's ridiculous.
Chance at being that energy big off the bench. I wasn't sure if Jalen Wells would stay in the draft or go back to Washington State.
I love Jalen Wells. I'll be the one to say it. Y'all don't want to say it. I do not care. I love Jalen Wells.
He's a 6'8 wing who can really shoot it and has some.
He is a shooter.
Game off the bounce. He's a solid mover on the ball defensively, but he did post some red flag numbers as an event creator and needs work off the ball. Nonetheless, he was extremely productive for the Cougars down the stretch and has an intriguing skill set for
quick release, man.
Who was D2 prior to this year.
I like Jalen Wells. I'll be the one to say it. T-Wolves draft him. I would not be complaining.
I felt like Cam Christie had a high possibility of returning and transferring next year.
I mean, he's young, though. He's really young.
He belongs here as one of the very best shooters, both off the bounce and off the catch in the class. He's going to have to develop the drive and physicality to defend in the G League early on. But as I said months ago, I think he can be an impact player down the line, and he has a skill set to deliver first-round value.
And that's the thing. Like, I remember him at Minnesota, and he's fine. But it's like he's so young. That's what you have to realize.
Nikola Jurisic has firmly established himself as a potential first-round, early second-round pick with his play down the stretch of the year and his Eurocamp and Combine performances. He's got good size in the wing. The shot is coming along. He can make plays, and I think he fits the bill as a potential contributor and should have plenty of interest.
Ew. I'm not a fan. He just don't look that smooth, man.
KJ Simpson was another one of the best performers at the Combine on top of what was a great year at Colorado.
Crazy. He's 6 foot
He's
tall.
Smaller. He's got a great, well-rounded game. He can get to the brim. He's a solid passer. There's a real path to him being a rotation guard, and I think he's someone that should go in the top 40.
I mean, I think he's too high on KJ, but that's me. He just,
Bobby
it's
Clique,
so hard to play at 6 feet tall.
Simmons remains in this big tier of players from the 20s into the 30s. I still like him enough as a big wing who can do a little of everything.
He's
He
young.
doesn't necessarily excel anywhere, but as long as the shot is there, and I believe it will be,
His player build's elite.
he'll have a chance at carving out a role at some point in an archetype that is a hot commodity around the
I
league.
like him.
Who wants it down low. He's got Brown for company. Clickman in the corner again.
Dylan Jones has one of the most
Remind me of Jaden McDaniels right there.
unique profiles of any player as a 6'6" power guard with absurd raw box score numbers and skill as a passer and rebounder. There's still a big question in his three-point shot and to playing more in a complementary role that we haven't quite seen yet, but I think he's good at enough things to draft.
He's old.
And just tell him to go figure it out. Creighton's Baylor Shireman has obvious appeal as a big wing shooter with great confidence, and
I'm not a big Shireman guy. I just don't like Creighton though, and it is what it is. I'm just not a big fan of a lot of Creighton's
the
guys.
ability to be a plus on the glass and as a passer. He probably won't be a great defender. He's not the most impressive athlete by any means, but he can play and has continued to show
He can
that
play
from the
for sure,
combine and
but
now reportedly into his workouts. AJ Mitchell had a really good combine, showing that he could compete with the other draftees and hold his own. He's a very good
6'3".
playmaker, and while he wasn't great defensively in college, I think he'll lean into that more in the league, and he showed it in those scrimmages. He's got questions in his shot and separation ability, but I think he's got enough to carve out a role.
That's
I've
valid.
revisited Tyler Kolek a few times and doing Big East
I
profiles,
like Tyler Kolek, man. I like him.
and it always feels like I should be a little higher on him than I've got him ranked. Nothing new really stood out, but it was just a reminder of how impressive he is as a playmaker, competitor, and improved shooter. I still have some concerns defensively that aren't going away, especially measuring in at 6'1", but as a backup take,
Measuring it at 6'1" is crazy.
setter, I think had Kevin McCullough been healthy down the stretch of the season and obviously into the pre-draft process, many teams and public boards and mocks would still be very much in on him as a potential first-round pick. He seems to be falling more into that early second-round range as he's been unable to work out in
Did y'all see Kansas got Coleman? Or no, never mind. That was Kansas State. I'm about to say Kansas State got Coleman Hawkins. He is going to be tough.
but I buy his defense first, his connected playmaking, and the shot being decent enough to be worthy of a
That's
selection.
a tough shot right there.
Nothing has really changed in my opinion on Ryan Dunn. He's an excellent defensive prospect who tested
Oh my
really well
gosh.
at the combine athletically. He's just got a ways to go in his shot and will need to be in
Oh
the
my
to
gosh.
maximize his offensive game and bring it along. The appeal with him is he has an elite skill, and though there may be more well-rounded options or young wings with various levels of upside, he's someone who at least knows what it's going to look like and has the roadmap.
He be playing D, man. Oh my gosh.
Keyshawn George is one of those prospects where there is statistical evidence that suggests he's not much of an NBA player. However, when I watch him, his combination of shooting, playmaking, and defense always
He's
stands
young.
out, especially at 6'8". Now, being a lower tier athlete and skinnier wing does hurt him, but I think first round is
Yeah, he's just skinny. That's the
still a
problem.
reasonable possibility. Johnny Furphy decided to stay in the draft and has garnered interest as high as the late lottery for his athletic tools and upside as an off-ball wing. I have some
6'8".
hesitations in his ability to do much with the ball and in
He's
his
so young though.
defense, but the effort is definitely there, and as long as the shot is there, he should be a fine pick from the late teens into the late 20s.
He's young,
Now,
man.
this group is where I'd start to consider late first-round contract opportunities.
If the T-Wolves draft one guy from this, I hope it's Tyler Kolek.
Longer-term second
Genuinely, I think he's going
really
to
big, and
be a
those
winner
towards the top
day
top
one.
pieces to be in the next group with a little more shot at being rotation pieces, but it's solid nonetheless. Pacom Dottier's upside as a 6'8" wing who does well as an off-ball scorer, has the tools to defend, and performed well down the stretch make him a potential first-rounder.
He be
also
playing
has some
D,
intriguing
man.
shot making and passing flashes that could come to fruition down the line.
Shot looks good.
He's likely going to take some time as well, but I believe he could outperform many of the toolsy wings that are often in his range or he's compared to.
Bro, he's so young.
There's nothing really new to say about Ignite's Tyler Smith. He's a stretch four who I believe to be one of the best shooters in the class, even with some of his combine lower numbers, but questions about him being able to either defend more on the wing or play the 5 still
Shot
keep him
looks
from
smooth
being
too.
in that next tier for me. For a smaller wing, it was good to see Jacoby Walter measure with a 6'10" wingspan. That gives him the ideal tools to be that 3-and-D KCP-ish wing, but
6'4", 6'10"
defense
wingspan.
wasn't there in the way that I'd like it to be as a potential lottery pick. I still think he's solid. He's a really impressive movement shooter. Should have a little bit more off the bounce, but that's how I see him at the moment.
Oh my gosh.
I think Yves Missi is a solid big man prospect as one of the most effective defenders and vertical lob threats.
6'11", 230.
He's also 7 foot in shoes and has some driving upside as well, which only helps his case. Now, some of the touch around the rim and fouling weren't great, but he's an important piece of a center class that I think will be recognized as good and deep in NBA.
Oh my gosh.
Duke's Kyle Filipowski is a solid prospect as a skilled 7-footer who can make plays.
I think he's complete.
Space the floor and improve defensively in a lot of ways. Now, there are still some questions on that end. He's got a
defensively for
wingspan
sure.
and has been a streaky shooter in his career, but anywhere from the right fit in the top 15 to the mid-20s is a fine spot for him.
I think he's tough.
It's still tougher for me to get fully on board where some people I've talked to have Zach Edey ranked, but I do see him making an NBA contribution.
I think Edey, if he learns how to shoot the ball, could be good.
He's massive, he's got great touch, and though he's a true drop big, he moves well enough as the biggest player in the league. As long as he leans into the modern game, aiming to be the best screener in the league, scoring quickly against mismatches, and most importantly, managing NBA level pull-up threats in the pick and roll, I think he'll be good to go.
Man, he blocks some crazy shots. I think he's gonna translate. I do. Now, do I want the Wolves to draft him? No, because I don't think there's room for him in the rotation.
Tidjane Salaün is another one of the most interesting prospects to me. I think his size, athleticism, and upside as a shot maker is impressive, but I think he's just a little too far away to get on board to where he's been trending in the draft. There's too much going on offensively, on and off the ball. Anything can really happen when he gets the ball on offense and isn't just finishing plays, but he's young, and if he gets runway to figure it out, he could be worth it in the end.
That's what I'm saying. He's really young.
Tristan da Silva is probably the guy hiding in plain
He's
sight
complete,
to sneak into
man.
the lottery. He's someone that every team could use as a high field forward that shoots lights out and can defend a couple positions. Now, he's not quite the athlete or creator to be more than what he is, but I think he's going to contribute, and there's a 0% chance he makes it all the way past Cleveland at 20. It's been great to see DaRon Holmes continue to climb up boards as the draft nears. He's got an impressive skill set as a 6'10 big who's improved as a shooter, can score in multiple ways and protect.
He just looks super athletic.
Now, there are some questions he'll have to answer in his shot and ability to either handle more interior responsibilities,
Athletic
at the 5,
freak,
or
man.
defend better on the perimeter, but I think he's got enough feel and production to figure it out. To me, Jalen Tyson is an easy player to like in this class. He's one of the best wing creators capable of creating shots for himself and others, and while the defense wasn't great at Cal and their team wasn't good, he's had moments of being solid in previous stops, and I think he'll be able to make that adjustment to...
Like, again, a lot of these guys, especially in the Pac-12, if they didn't make the tourney, I probably have not watched.
And for that, I'd probably take him as high as the late lottery and into the early 20s, though his stock is more late.
His shot looks smooth.
I think Bob Carrington's shot making, playmaking, and upside on defense could have him one of the more impactful guards from this class when it's all said and done. Now, his ability to get to the rim and his frame right now do really concern me, and he'll need to improve there to get everything out of his talent. But for teams interested in an offensive punch from a young guard,
like, this is the type of guy, like, again, I've never watched,
he's got to be well in that conversation.
Get the extra pass. Bob Carrington.
Oh my god.
Jared McCain is as solid a guard prospect as you're gonna get.
Dookie.
He shoots the net off, he makes the right play, he rebounds, and probably has a little more to offer as a playmaker. Now, I do think his ability to get to the bucket and his size could be limiting for him, but he's a winner who will likely contribute, and at a certain point, that's all you're looking for, especially for teams like Miami, Philly, LA, and Orlando.
T-Wolves.
Khalil Ware tested out
T-Wolves don't have a pick to get him, but I'm just saying.
well at the combine, and I think that does give him a little boost going into the rest of pre-draft.
He's just
Got a good
massive.
skill set as a 7-footer who can score it in a few ways, can protect the rim, and is mobile, though probably not fully switchable. I still think some of the motor concerns are valid with him, but he's someone I think could really shine in the right environment. I've been somewhat skeptical of Cody Williams.
I think Cody Williams is going to be good, man.
When it comes to considering him in the top 8 to 10-ish, because he's so slim and I don't buy the jumper or handle being great, but he's intriguing as a lanky wing who was excellent at the rim with great touch and has versatility on defense. I don't want people to put J-Dub expectations on him because they're going to be on 2 wildly different development paths, but there's a solid player in there for Cody.
I think Cody Williams is going to be good.
Dropping 16 so far for the freshman.
I feel fairly confident about most of these guys as higher rotation to potential starter bets in the first round. I might change some things around because there are a few players I feel like I might be undervaluing on rankings, but not necessarily in practice or in considering them in the 20s. So I may widen it. Providence's Devin Carter has become one of my favorites in this class, and a guy I'm certain is going to impact winning in the NBA.
I feel like there's going to be a lot of guards that slip. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I genuinely do. I feel like there's a lot of a lot of small guards.
Sort of a combo guard and somewhat questionable creator as a 22-year-old, but he's got all defense upside to me. Fantastic motor, 6'9" wingspan, and a vastly improved offensive game. There's been a lot of rumors floating around about a lottery promise, and while certain things don't particularly add up all the way, if that were to be the case, I would kind of be surprised if he didn't go lotto at this point. I still believe Isaiah Collier is a lottery caliber guard. He's got an ability to get downhill and make plays for others that is rival.
I just don't understand how USC was so bad.
Maybe one other player in the class. He's physical, and I tend to buy his shot and decision making a little more than others, which is why he's where he's at. Now, he's far from perfect, and situation will mean a whole lot for him to the point that falling out of the lottery doesn't necessarily bother me, but he's someone I would heavily consider for the teams able to accommodate and pour into what he brings to the table. Dalton Connect is one of the class's
He's so good. I don't care that he's old. If you're a contending team, you need him.
Shooters and scorers with good size.
He's so good.
While he's older and probably won't ever be more than a neutral defender at his very best, he's got a clear pathway to a role and absolutely dismantled great teams as the only real offensive option on Tennessee. And I think what he brings is going to be attractive for teams as high as the mid-lottery.
He's so good. I do not care. He's so good.
Modest Buzelis has generated a lot of buzz among teams late in the draft process, and even with some of the struggles that he had this year, the idea of a 6'10" wing/forward who can connect on offense is an underrated defender and really just needs.
He's 6'9", 197.
Shot to stick is an intriguing one, especially if he can hit on some of those weak points in a workout setting. Now, I still think he's got a ways to go from what he showed this year, but he's a solid bet in the top 10.
Like him compared to Connect, like they're just opposites. Connect's ready right now, but doesn't have the ceiling probably.
The news on Nikola Topic's partially torn ACL makes things even more interesting in the lottery of this draft. It doesn't really change my position on him too much unless he's going to need surgery and won't play at all next season. Now, they've said things have come back positive, but in that case, depending on the team, he might not be worth investing in if you're trying to integrate him and whoever you pick in 2025, and who knows, maybe you outperform expectations this year. It just gets difficult fast, but he's still a super dynamic playmaking talent and one I'd consider throughout the lottery. Stephon Castle's reported demands of being a point guard in the NBA are really confusing to me. One, because if he's eventually worthy of getting those responsibilities, they will happen naturally in a lot of situations.
Why would he demand that? Like, are you crazy? You are 19 years old.
Including some of those already with a lead guard. Now, I understand trying to position yourself to a specific team like a San Antonio or maybe a Washington, but when the questions as an advantage creator were already there coming into college, and then this year, whether it was a product of coaching and game plan or whatever else, there just wasn't much there. It's a pretty big ask to pitch yourself as only being willing to do that. Now, saying all this, I still really like him as a prospect if he's not a PG. I do think it's going to take him a second offensively and would understand if you were out for that, but the defense size playmaking is enough to see.
I mean, he's 6'6" with the he's going to be fine. Shot looks disgusting, though.
The case for Reed Shepherd remains the same at this point. He's an elite shooter, a good passer, and stocks creator on defense, but questions about his size, his point of attack defense, and ability to create as a point guard are still there. I'm pretty sure he's going to contribute in the league, and his advanced numbers are suggestive of a perennial all-star, but the right situation like a Houston, Detroit, or San Antonio will probably be necessary.
At 6? I mean, he is really young, though.
Whatever his own ceiling is. Zachary Riesenshea ended the season about as strongly as he possibly could, playing great in the playoffs for JL Borg and knocking down open looks once again, and it's made me more confident in him as a player. Now, I still find him to be a bit of a hard sell as the #1 pick, unless you're just supremely confident that he's going to make great improvements as a creator, and the way that he tested out athletically doesn't really give me a ton of confidence in that either, but as a 3-and-D wing with good size, I think he's a fine pick to do that well and make a real contribution in the league.
I mean, again, he's still so young. That's the crazy part about the NBA draft is these guys are literally 19 years old.
Clingan is one of the surest bets in the class.
I think Klingen's going to be really good.
His offensive skill set still feels a little limited to ordinarily have him in this range unless he somehow learns.
Offensively, he's not great.
But there's just too much evidence for his defensive impact being great in the NBA, and he's got elite size. As long as the medicals check out, I think think he has a chance of eventually anchoring top 7 defenses, and that's extremely valuable.
No, I agree. His defense is so good.
Remains the best creation bet in the class, but with him also having a chance of being the worst defender in the league at his size, that naturally creates a need for him to negate that as a star on offense, especially the higher that he's picked. I get the wider range and hesitation for that reason, but I think he just brings too much as a playmaker and shooter, and think in a spot
Rob at 3 I think is high, but again, offensively he's tough. Imagine him and Wemby.
like San Antonio, he could exceed a lot of.
That's what I'm saying, him and Wemby.
Even with all the noise about him potentially falling out of the lottery completely due to workouts, Ron Holland is still one of the top prospects in the class to me, and I think it would be egregious if that were to happen. His offensive production as a slasher and his
I'm not gonna lie. This guy looks disgusting.
progression at the pro level are worth buying, and he has great upside as a defender with an excellent motor. He's far from a finished product or this prospect that just has no questions, but the possibility that he's this year's Cam Whitmore or Tyrese Maxey, both of which I liked a lot at the time, is extremely high if those rumors are true.
This guy's fine, but taking this guy over that, I don't even know how to say his name. The Zachary guy, like, is just crazy to me.
I didn't think that I'd have Alex Sarr #1 for basically the entire year. I don't think that's happened since Cade Cunningham, who never moved from that spot for me. Sarr's overall upside as an athletic
man, he looks good to me.
Can switch,
like just his movement at 7'1",
plays and eventually expand on
his footwork looks good.
Is the best combination of impact and upside to me. Not in saying that he's not a completely can't miss star, and the expectations should reflect that, but I like what he brings, and think if you keep Trae Young, Jalen Johnson,
man, this guy is tough.
Pieces and build with Sarr, you could get somewhere significant in the near future. Now, I don't think Alex Sarr is the type of prospect that needs his own full tier, but
yeah, but I think Zakari is better than Ron Holland. I think out of this class, Ron Holland's gonna be the bust.
There is some separation between him and the others here.
Y'all tell me.
I also like Rob Dillingham and Ron Holland a little more than most at this point, but outside of that, depending on the team and the lottery, my board would consist of mostly these players with maybe 3, 4, 5 others. I think.
I'd also take Connect in the top 6.
Though in that spot positionally, or
I know he's old, but I would
if that environment was right. And here's a look back at the entire board.
I don't hate this either. Kolek, hopefully my T-Wolves can get Kolek, man.
I appreciate y'all for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like.
Yes, sir. Make sure to go show love to my man. Link is down below in the description. Drop a like on the video, subscribe if you're new, and as always, man, I love you guys, and have a blessed day.